how many maintenance agreements do you need in your company? Maintenance agreements are critical, really, for any company and the success of that company. There are going to be slow times throughout the year. Something has to fill in those slow days. Maintenance agreements are a perfect type of work. You'll also find that maintenance agreements will be the feeder into everything else that you do within your company. It'll increase profitability, it'll fill in slow times, and it will help you in all aspects of the company, including bringing in more revenue to other areas of the company. As a minimum, we can calculate how many maintenance agreements you need to have in the company. The typical company will experience 90 slow days a year. 90 days where it's not at any kind of extreme for your trade. In HVAC, it's not hot or it's not cold. Things aren't really running. Right? Plumbing, if it's not hot or it's not cold, systems aren't stressed. Same thing on the electrical side. So how many agreements do you need within your company to fill in those 90 slow days per year? Again, one of the things that will change is what time of year those slow days happen. Obviously, if you're in the South, it's probably going to happen in the middle of winter. In the North, you're busy in the winter, right? So it's a grand total of 90 slow days, and it's not the whole day is empty. Yes, we have a couple of hours here, a couple of hours there, right? So how many days do we need to fill in that extra time? The maintenance contracts needed, a calculator will tell you just that. So we'll simply start at the top of this calculator, and how many slow days are there per year per technician? Well, typically there's 90 slow days. That's what we have in here as a default. You can change it if you need to. The next one, how many equivalent service techs do you have in your company? All right, and by equivalent service techs, in my case, I've got 2 full-time service techs, and I've got one guy that splits half of his time between service and half of his time in install. So as a result, it's 2.5 techs is what I have on my team. Next, how many hours per day are they working? Well, my team works full-time. It's 8 hours per day. That's what we have in that box as a default. Next, what is the average percent of time that the typical tech bills the customer in a day? In other words, what percentage of their time is lost? The typical service technician is about 50% of their time lost. In other words, out of an 8-hour day, we're billing out an average of 4 hours. Now you can say, well, wait a minute, my guys are a lot higher than that. Just make sure that you're keeping in tune with company meeting time, drive time if it's not billable for you, trips to the supply house, warranty work, callback work. Right? It's all stuff that they're doing that is on the job. But what about that time that they can't bill out? Right? So again, a typical service tech is 50% of his time. And then last, what is the total annual on-the-job hours required to perform the maintenance work or perform the maintenance agreement? So in my particular case, my agreements are an hour spring, an hour fall. That's 2 hours a year. So when I plug in 2 hours, that tells me that I need a minimum of 450 agreements. Now again, I'm not saying that's your total, but that's your minimum. Right? So 450 agreements is what I need to fill in those 90 slow days per year for my 2.5 service technicians. Now, for some of you, you're doing more commercial work, or you have a combination of commercial and residential maintenance type work. Well, you're not doing a 2-hour maintenance check on a commercial job. An easy thing that you can do there is simply change that to 1. At that point, what it tells you is that, in this case, I need 900 maintenance hours to fill in that time. So maybe I've got a commercial job with a bunch of rooftop units, and I've got scheduled 125 hours per year to perform the maintenance on that rooftop. Okay, 900 minus 125 hours, I'm now down to 775 hours left to fill. Then I've got another 100 residential maintenances at 2 hours apiece, so that's another 200 hours off of there. Right? It just gives you the total number of maintenance hours that you need to fill throughout the course of the year to keep your team busy throughout that slow time. Now remember, this is a minimum a number of agreements or minimum a number of maintenance hours. If you are heavy in the maintenance side, then again, you're going to want a lot more. If you have a separate maintenance department, well, if I've got a separate maintenance department and the guys are doing nothing but maintenance, their billable time should be significantly higher than 50%. And so at that point, I might say those guys are actually billing out, since the jobs are far more pre-scheduled and they're going job to job to job to job, and there's not a lot of windshield time or parts procurement time, right? Then at that point, 75% of their time is billed. Okay, now I'm at a minimum of 675 maintenance contracts needed. Use this as a starting point, find out how many you have, and now incentivize your technicians to sell maintenance agreements until you hit at least this number. If you have any questions in regards to determining the number of maintenance agreements that you need or establishing a maintenance program, feel free to give us a call at Grandy & Associates.